If there's a report of a serious case of child abuse in your school, are you prepared? What might be the safeguarding issues that fall into the domain and responsibility of the board? In this video, we explore the concepts around safeguarding the children, your responsibilities as a trustee, and some scenarios to help you pre-think situations and your reactions. You will, or at least you should, hear the terms child protection or child safeguarding frequently during your time as a trustee. But what exactly do these terms mean, and what are the implications for you as a trustee? Although these two terms are often used interchangeably, you might like to think of child safeguarding as a big container of terms, and child protection as one component of safeguarding. So strategies for protecting the child from harm, child protection, would work hand in hand with strategies to support vulnerable children in the home and community, or child safeguarding. Child protection itself can be thought of in terms of four aspects: harming a child or causing a child to be harmed, putting a child in risk of being harmed, attempting to harm a child, or inciting others to harm a child. Before we get into the details about some strategies that you may be thinking about for child protection and safeguarding, let's consider for a moment a couple of scenarios to get you thinking. First, what would you be thinking if a concerned parent calls you, maybe somebody you know, because they've heard from their child that a teacher's daughter is refusing to come to school and has been sending messages that sound very dark and suicidal? What would you say immediately to the concerned parent, and what might you think you should be doing next to follow up? Or a different case, where a teacher catches you at a social function or shopping or whatever, and mentions in passing that an ex-colleague who was a teacher in the high school and who left a couple of years ago has been fired for suspected sexual misconduct with a minor. What would your approach be immediately? But what would you be thinking you have to do as a follow-up, as a consequence? Now, both of these scenarios require an immediate response from you, whatever that may be, but they may also be significant implications for the school, and how you approach the problems will be important. So as a trustee, you'll want to ensure that you've got robust policies and procedures in place to create a safe environment for children, while ensuring that adults who work in the school don't pose any kind of a threat to the children, and they themselves are appropriately trained. As a trustee, you'll want to be reassured that the children themselves receive information and training about how to stay safe, and you will need to pay particular attention for the processes for reporting concerns, whether from a child, from adults in the school, and from the community. You may have known the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. It's been actively promoting safeguarding for 30 years, and most countries are indeed signatories of that agreement. Sadly, however, there are frequently gaps between the stated position of a country on children's rights and how the laws are enforced, and how different cultures may view the rights and what provisions are in place to support them. The two scenarios earlier alluded to the fact that child safeguarding, you may have to consider different forms of danger, whether from the child himself or herself, or another person, and it's not simply referring to sexual abuse. Sexual abuse may be one of the first things that springs to mind, but physical and emotional abuse are often more prevalent in the homes. And then you have to also consider neglect, not taking appropriate care and attention for the well-being of the child. You may in fact hear more about well-being in the school, as this is a means to address many of the concerns, but through positive messaging, and finding ways to improve the well-being of students and staff through a conscious approach to activities and to learning. As a trustee, your focus for child safeguarding will be at a policy and strategic level that will be guided by good questions. You'll be considering policies on safeguarding, which may include bullying or anti-bullying, but these policies will mean nothing unless they're consistently applied. Which begs the question, how do you know? How would you approach monitoring and evaluating the safeguarding within the school? What training would be required for the head teacher or staff, and what kind of budget provision might that involve? What risks are there in the school and the wider community, and what strategies are in place with the leadership to deal with these issues as they arise? What are the implications for teacher recruitment, indeed for any adult working in the school or visiting the school? What are the legal implications for the school? And what are the structures in place to provide support for the community? What are your obligations and duties if accusations are made against a member of staff? As you can see, this is a deep and complex issue, and you may well be tempted just to leave it to the school leadership to get on with. While the school faculty and staff, the leadership, will certainly be doing the legwork on any procedures and systems, that doesn't abdicate you from the responsibility of oversight. If there's a serious incident in the school, whether it's abuse, neglect, suicide, or inappropriate conduct, then as trustees, you will be under the spotlight too, and ignorance is no defense. Just think about one of those worst case scenarios and ask yourself what you'd be wishing you'd have done earlier. Getting robust child safeguarding policies and procedures in place is essential, and it's hard work. It's not about getting an off-the-shelf model and putting the school logo on it. It has to be embedded within the systems and culture within the school. So it would usually take several months of coordinated effort to produce, even if there's a framework to follow. As trustees, you'll need to have an understanding of the systems and structures in place that are there to protect the children, support vulnerable children at home and in school, and the actions that the school takes, and how you support the staff and adults as well. You'll need to know if there are mandatory reporting systems or national laws that you have to work with. As an international school, likely as not, you'll have some high-profile parents in your community. And whilst you can't anticipate every scenario, it's a useful exercise for the board and leadership to work together to challenge your systems with some role-play exercises. What would you do if the child was that of an ambassador? Would there be cases where you'd make exceptions to the mandated reporting lines? If so, who decides that? How is it documented? What's the board's view of an individual's employment rights and this concept of innocent until proven guilty versus the potential backlash from parents if there was an accusation made against a member of staff? These are all really tricky situations, and only so much can be done hypothetically. But the point is that through a process of robust conversations in the school and the board, you begin to explore the boundaries, where the pinch points are, and to better understand where policy may not be sufficiently documented or further research is necessary, all before the critical incident occurs. The scenario planning and role play help practice and prepare for a traumatic event, and while we all hope it will never happen, that's no reason not to be prepared. Are you sure that your school has robust and well-documented policies and procedures for child safeguarding? Do you know, broadly, what these procedures entail and whether there are mandatory reporting requirements? Are you prepared for a worst-case scenario in your school community? Sexual abuse, suicide? And what do you need to do as a trustee to ensure that everything is in place and is effectively monitored?